Hello everyone, NoahNovels here, and welcome back once again to my Revue Starlight episode discussion and analysis series. In today's episode, I'll be going over episode 9 of the anime, titled On the Night of the Star Festival. With that being said, let's begin talking about the episode. The episode starts with Karen and everyone else admiring the first draft of the revised script of Starlight for this year's upcoming performance. One thing that sticks out to me right away about this scene is the animation seems to be returning to the drab colors and dim lighting that we saw in episode 7, when Nana first started growing resentful of any time past her beloved performance of Starlight. This choice for the animation does make sense, since, even though Nana is putting on a happy act in front of everyone else, the idea of actually moving past her original performance of Starlight into the future is something she is still not okay with. But she's not the only character in this story, which is why throughout this following scene, we do still get shots and moments with brighter lighting and colors, representing everyone else's eagerness for what lies ahead of them, clashing against Nana's desire to stay in the past. This is especially evident in a minute, when everyone is doing a group reading of the new script by the windows, which is letting bright light into the scene. But we'll be back to that in a minute. Everyone starts excitedly working together on various aspects of the production, such as Futaba, who is going over weapon designs, and Karuko going over the costumes of the goddesses with Claudine. I especially like seeing Karuko interact with Claudine in a positive and friendly manner. This is the same girl who she felt stole Futaba from her in episode 6, and yet now she's enthusiastically going over her ideas for improving the costume designs with her. It's a nice quick way of showing how she's grown and matured since then, with her newfound friendliness towards Claudine and the fact that she's actually pitching in suggestions for making the production itself better. What can I say? I love me some character growth. Next up we see Karen, Hikari, Mihiru, Juna, Maya, and Nana doing a practice read of the new Starlight script, with Karen and Mihiru taking note of some improved line changes. Hikari very briefly wonders why she's friends with someone who mistakes the word pretentiousness for pretzelness. Back off, Hikari, it's a tough word. And Juna drops the famous Shakespeare quote, "Life is as tedious as a twice-told tale." Hikari very briefly wonders why she's friends with someone who can't recognize a William Shakespeare quote despite being in theater school. And Maya goes on to explain the meaning behind the quote. Since we only have one life, we should strive to take on new challenges and goals, lest we become bored or complacent. After all, what's the point in a life without risk and excitement? Maybe that's something our silent stage girl, Nana Daiba, should ask herself. Futaba continues on from where they left off, saying that because they're doing a repeat performance, they need to put on an even better show than last time. And that's just kinda how life works sometimes, isn't it? We're not gonna have overnight success or change, at least not most of us. A good chunk of life can be repetitious, especially depending on things like work, but you can still improve yourself day by day. Even if your life seems like a monotonous repeat performance, there's still things you can do to hone your craft and become a better you than the you of yesterday. And that way, when the time comes for you to really put yourself out there and reach for new heights, you'll be ready. Life isn't just about change. It's about working hard to improve yourself or your life, which I know is a form of change, but it's change that you have to work for. And that's why the repeat performance worked so well for the cast of Revue Starlight. In the time we spent watching them throughout the auditions, they've all grown so much. They've overcome their current problems, fears, and insecurities. And with the lessons they've learned both in the auditions and in Saisho itself, they're ready to put on an even better performance of Starlight. But of course, there's still one character who isn't satisfied with this. We see an illustration of Act 2 of Starlight from the 99th Saisho Festival, next to another Act 2 illustration, this one for the 100th festival. These are close-up shots which then cut to a wide shot of Nana, Karen, and Mihiru standing in front of the illustrations. Nana in the illustration from the 99th festival mostly covered in light since that's her precious performance, with the illustration from the upcoming festival as well as Karen and Mihiru mostly covered in darkness, showing Nana's disdain and fear of a future beyond her repeat performance. Along with this, an ominous background track which started with Futaba speaking continues, giving what should be an upbeat scene of classmates working together enthusiastically a menacing aura. An aura befitting that of a stage girl willing to do whatever it takes to save her precious, shining stage of fate that is the 99th Saisho Festival's performance of Starlight. Juna comes up to Nana saying that she likes the new Starlight script, but rather than happily responding to her closest friend at Saisho, Nana gives a one-word response and walks away, much to the confusion of Karen, Mihiru, and Juna. Then the opening plays. The next scene is back to the usual bright colors and animation because 1, it's set outside, and 2, the scene is solely focused on Karen and Hikari, with the gloomy Nana nowhere to be seen. Karen wonders why Nana is acting the way she is, noting that she's never seen her like this before. She goes on to talk about the very reason Nana is acting this way, the new version of Starlight, and how she likes it. Hikari scolds Karen for liking it too much, but Karen defends her obsession, saying that it's the first stage play she ever saw and the reason she became a stage girl. When she asks Hikari if she likes it too much, Hikari responds with a nod and begins to take out the book that the play Starlight is based on, The Starlight Gatherer, and
oh shit, it's English.
Hikari says she'll translate for Karen, and we cut to a scene of Nana sadly looking at the tower prop from the last production of Starlight. Once again, the colors and lighting are more on the drab side, minus the light coming in from the windows, and to save myself the trouble of saying the animation is dark or bright every time we switch scenes, let's just assume that any scene focusing on Nana keeps this more muted style of animation to represent her disdain and uneasiness of progressing towards the future, unless I note otherwise. I do love the consistency though. As always, the attention to detail and visual storytelling of Revue Starlight is top tier stuff. I just don't want to become annoying saying the same thing over and over again. Juna approaches Nana, who is lamenting over the fact that a prop crucial to her precious performance is going to be rebuilt for the upcoming one. Juna goes on to talk about how tough but fulfilling their time spent on the 99th performance was, to which Nana responds by saying that the Starlight of the 99th Saisho Festival will begin again soon. As Nana looks at her copy of the previous Starlight script, she tells Juna that before Saisho, she was always alone, but when she came to Saisho, she was able to make friends, and even stand upon a stage made through the combined effort of her and her friends. And that's why she has to protect her performance of Starlight. Not only is she scared of what the future may hold for her friends and classmates that she cares so much about, but that performance is the most important thing to have ever happened to her. Not to mention, what lies in store for her and her friends down the line. It didn't take Naruse and Okusa very long to leave her life after the 99th Saisho Festival. So what about everyone else? After they all graduate from Saisho, will they stick together? Or go their separate ways, leaving Nana all alone again? Take that fear of losing the people you care most about in your life and add on a life-changing experience that feels like the most important moment of your life, and all of a sudden, Nana's desire to stay in her comfortable and happy repeat performance doesn't seem that out there. Not that it ever did for me personally, but I can understand how intense and hell-bent Nana is regarding her mission can come off as a bit much to some people. But hey, these are theater kids. They're allowed to be a bit over the top. Fully understanding Nana's backstory and motivations like this, however, does go a long way in making those scenes where she acts ruthless in the revues more compelling. You really feel bad for her, because you know this intense and cutthroat attitude comes from a place of care for her friends, but also fear and loneliness. Losing friends or growing apart from them is a natural part of life, but that doesn't make it any easier. And I've certainly had moments where I've thought about losing touch with my friends from school or work, and yeah, it sucks. I get it, so Nana's motivation and how desperately she works to keep her repeat performance makes sense to me. The way Revue Starlight decides to handle these topics through Nana's role in the story and character arc is really well done, much like the rest of the themes and issues tackled in this show. Going back to Karen and Hikari, we begin to see a recreation of Starlight with the main cast of the show, of course, playing the roles in the play. You can tell this is based off the 99th Saisho Festival's performance of Starlight because all the goddesses are wearing the hoods that Karuko mentioned earlier at the start of the episode. I think it's cool that we're finally getting a complete look at the story of Starlight from start to end. Obviously, we've seen parts of it up to this point and understand its importance to the story, how it was the play that inspired Karen and Hikari to become stage girls, and how their story up to this point has mirrored that of Starlight. But now we're in episode 9, and it contains one of the most important revues in the entire series, its result deciding whether Nana's time loop continues and everything we've seen the characters go through and experience reset once again. A complete erasure of all the progress and development everyone has gone through. An ironic fact considering Nana is continuing this time loop to keep everybody safe from the harsh future. This resetting of time by Nana is actually the worst thing that could happen to these characters as of now, considering how much they've all grown and overcome throughout the course of this show. But anyways, as I was saying, I think it's fitting we finally get a complete look at the story of Starlight and what is arguably one of the most important revues in the series. This all helps makes what's coming in this episode and the rest of the series feel that much more impactful. Anyways, I'm not going to summarize the story of Starlight beat for beat, but I will mention a couple cool things about this scene. First off, we actually get an insert song in the form of Hoshi Sumi no Uta, sung by none other than the leads from the last performance of Starlight, Maya and Claudine. Yep, we get 2 insert songs this episode, and this one is beautiful. It's essentially a song about Starlight, reading the lyrics to it should make that pretty clear, and having it play over the recreation of Starlight's story makes the scene feel so magical. And no surprise here, but Maya and Claudine's voice actresses, Maho Tomita and Aina Aiba, do a phenomenal job with the singing. Hearing Maya sing a more slower, emotional song compared to the extravagant and fast-paced Revue song of episode 3, Pride and Arrogance, does a good job at showing her range, proving her mastery of different musical genres. We may have seen her lose to Nana in episode 7, but it's stuff like this that reminds us why she's considered the top star of Saisho. Not to mention her singing voice is just really beautiful. This is Claudine's first time singing in the show if I'm not mistaken, and yes, her vocals are also great. They match so well with Maya's too. It's really cool seeing how these two characters who are so important to each other complement each other, not just through their actions or dialogue in the story. It's a great singing debut for Claudine, and a nice little sneak peek at what Maya and Claudine sound like when singing together, which may or may not become more relevant in the next episode. Also, I guess technically, Claudine sings in the opening song, obviously, so this isn't her singing debut in the show, but at least within the actual show itself. Next thing I want to point out is when the sinful goddesses are introduced in the story. Our main cast of characters, of course, playing the goddesses. Each of the goddesses have a word that acts as their title, and the words chosen for each of the goddesses actually relate to the characters playing them. I like this detail, and it's a really subtle but cool way of showing just how much influence theater has in their lives. Each of their goddess names are titles relating to themselves, and stuff we'll eventually see them deal with over the course of the show. Also, when the goddesses fully awaken and take their battle positions, each of the goddesses' weapons are the same weapons the characters playing them use while fighting in the Revues. The story asks the readers why the goddesses are imprisoned, with no answer being provided because the goddesses themselves have forgotten what sins they must have committed to be punished. Kinda sounds similar to what happened to a certain dagger-wielding theater student after losing a series of Revue auditions. Loss of memory and identity. The story of Starlight eventually reaches its conclusion, proving it to be a tragedy as Nana said at the end of episode 8. Claire regaining her memory of Flora, but only after Flora is blinded and falls from the tower, leaving the two of them separated for all of eternity. The recreation of the story, or rather the 99th Saisho Festival's production of Starlight, comes to an end and we're taken back to the present with Hikari and Karen. Man, I love this scene where we get to see the full story of Starlight so much. It's wonderfully told with the characters we know and love performing the story, and then there's the slow and beautiful song Hoshi Sumi no Uta playing in the background. The whole scene just comes together so well and gets me to tear up. And even though it's a story with a tragic ending, I can't help but feel some odd sense of hope and happiness when seeing it. There is beauty and joy to be found in tragedy sometimes, and it seems that I'm not alone in that sentiment as Karen and Hikari proceed to gush over the story. Karen noting Flora's bravery in trying to make a miracle happen for her best friend, not unlike a certain stage girl who dives headfirst into a Revue in episode 1, and Hikari noticing Claire's strength to remember the promise she made to Flora despite her memory loss, not unlike a certain Mr. White-loving stage girl after losing in the Revue auditions. While Karen puts emphasis on the importance of the book itself, Hikari says it's the production they put on based around the story that really matters. Just as how it's up to us as viewers to interpret various forms of media and let it affect us personally if we find it to be compelling, what really matters for Karen and Hikari is not the story of the Starlight Gatherer, but rather the fulfilling of their promise to become stars and perform Starlight together. Although it doesn't hurt that the story of Starlight itself is pretty neat. Karen takes this to heart and is determined to make this year's performance of Starlight their best performance yet, whereas Nana remains steadfast in her desire to protect what she deems as the greatest and most important performance of Starlight yet, within her repeating performance on the stage of fate. She then starts to confess to Juna about her time loop, explaining why she's been doing it as well as how things started going awry upon Hikari's arrival. Nana's frustration and fear starts building as she starts acting possessive over Juna, with particular disdain for Karen's friendly nickname for Juna that she heard all the way back in episode 3, Junjun. It's funny to think that behind Nana's mildly confused or shocked face when she first heard Karen say that in episode 3, she was secretly thinking, "You don't get to call my Juna that, you hairpin-wearing freak!" Nana continues on, saying she won't let Juna be called by that name. Shortly afterwards, the wheels of Hikari's suitcase that we heard in episode 1 when she first arrived can be heard once more as Nana laments the uncertainty of the new Starlight script and performance. The sound of the wheels, the noise that herald the end of Nana's perfect time loop, stop abruptly when Nana screams that this next performance won't be her Starlight. Before Juna can truly process and respond to everything Nana just said, however, that all too familiar ringtone begins to play, signaling that it's time for the 7th day of auditions to begin. As Nana makes her way to the underground theater, determined to win and continue her repeat performance. She wonders why things change so much in this loop and what exactly will happen in the next. She comes to the realization that it's not Hikari who changed the status quo of her repeat performance, but rather Karen herself when she jumped into the Revue of Passion in episode 1. Rather than staying at the bottom ranks of the Revues like she usually did, the oversleeping and unmotivated stage girl changed the course of Nana's perfect time loop when she hopped into the world of the Revues to save her friend Hikari. I love the background music for this scene too, starting with Nana walking down the stairs. It starts off so slow and subdued, but slowly builds alongside Nana figuring out the reason for her repeat performance's change. And then when she does fully realize that it was Karen, it quickly swells and fades away as we transition to Karen's epic transformation sequence, which we haven't seen since episode 3 before Karen's Revue battle against Maya in the Revue of Pride. It feels so refreshing to see this transformation sequence again, even if it has only been 6 episodes since its last use. I feel like it further sells the weight of this Revue, with the last time we got to see this transformation sequence being the most important Revue for Karen as a character. That's not to say she wasn't important in the Revue of Jealousy, of course she was. She helped Mihiru realize her own self-worth, but that particular Revue was more about Mihiru, and Karen was there because of her importance to Mihiru's character. And of course she was important in the Revue of Solitude, her relationship and promise with Hikari being Hikari's reason to continue on. But once again, that particular Revue was more about Hikari as a character, and the greater themes of rebirth within Revue Starlight. This Revue though holds so much weight regarding the fates of the characters, with the risk of everything they've learned and gone through being lost if Karen doesn't put a stop to Nana in this fight. And that responsibility lies solely on Karen, even if she herself isn't aware of the potential consequences that a loss in this Revue can spell for her and her friends. So the importance of Karen in this Revue and her oncoming fight with Nana, I believe that's the reason we're finally seeing the return of her transformation sequence. Also, before I start talking about the Revue itself, I just briefly want to gush about the episode overall. I said in the last video how episode 8 feels like it brings everything up to that point full circle, and this episode feels the same way too. I still stand by what I said within the last video, as Hikari is such an important character to Revue Starlight, and seeing her backstory and victory in the Revue of Solitude really dug into the heart and themes of the show. But I don't know, this episode has so much going on for it too. How it expands upon and elevates Nana's ongoing character arc that started with episode 7, finally getting to see the full story of Starlight and how it mirrors everything Karen and Hikari have been through up to this point. The further recontextualizing of Karen's entrance into the Revue auditions in episode 1 as the true reason for the change within Nana's time loop, the importance of the oncoming Revue, and the return of Karen's transformation sequence, it's just, wow, there is so much going on for this episode. And we haven't even gotten to the fight between our beloved main character and the stage girl keeping everyone prisoner within her repeat performance. It's really cool to see how this episode builds off the last and manages to further elevate not only the stakes, but the recurring plot points such as the story of Starlight and how it mirrors Karen and Hikari's journey. I think it's really impressive how this show manages to make episodes that feel so complete and thematically satisfying, and then just going on to do that again and again. It makes it so every episode has importance and feels like its own story, but it still manages to do this while building up its overarching themes within its narrative. I don't know, I'm probably just rambling at this point, shocker I know. But man, I really do feel like Revue Starlight is one of the most concise and well-executed pieces of storytelling I've ever seen. I just haven't had a show before this one make me go, damn, that feels full circle as hell twice in a row. But that just goes to show the talent of all those involved in the creation of this unique and beautiful series. Anyways, Karen goes through her epic transformation sequence, and we cut to Nana on the stage of the underground theater. She introduces herself with a mini monologue about herself as red stage lights, not unlike the light of the top star, surround her, and the number 99 appears behind her. With Nana surrounded by red stage lights and the number relating to her precious performance of Starlight, the instrumentals of the Bonds of the Stars, or Hoshiboshi no Kizuna, begin, signaling the start of the 7th day of auditions, featuring the Revue of Bonds. Real quickly, let's talk about the song Hoshiboshi no Kizuna itself. I know I say this a lot, but it is amazing. It's easily the most intense and menacing Revue song we've heard yet, fitting for the stage girl determined to keep her time loop going no matter what. It really sells the threat that Nana poses with its threatening aura, its harsh sounds, and occasionally discordant instruments. And that's to say nothing of Moeka Kozumi's powerful vocals. During certain parts of the song and the Revue, the music will intensify as Nana sings, and man, the chills I got when I first heard her singing in this song. I think all the singing in Revue Starlight is top tier stuff, but I do think Moeka Kozumi is arguably the best singer in the cast, and it's moments like these that convince me of that. Her powerful and beautiful singing voice, her dynamic range, her ability to convey the emotions of her character while singing. This song is a perfect example of all that. Hoshiboshi no Kizuna is a powerful and fitting song to close out Nana's ongoing 3-episode arc, and the way it changes towards the end is something really beautiful. After Nana starts singing about her repeat performance granted to her by the Stage of Fate, she rushes towards Karen and starts berating her for being the reason that her perfect time loop has changed. Once again, the sword fight choreography is fantastic, feeling weighty and impactful, especially with this sequence here. I guess Nana just brings about a certain unique intensity to these reviews. Perhaps the more weighty and hard-hitting fights involving her are meant to represent her growing desperation to keep everything the same within her repeat performance. Nana asks Karen what role she plays within Starlight, since Starlight is supposed to be an 8-person story, meaning she has no place within it. As Nana continues to lament over the fact that things aren't the same anymore, while continuously driving Karen back with a series of attacks, she asks Karen why everything's changed since her and Hikari reunited. Karen responds with her usual promise of performing Starlight together with Hikari, and Nana responds with what might be one of the most tragic things said in this show. As she knocks Karen down, she says that she hates Starlight, the story that she worked so hard to put together and act in with her friends in the 99th Saisho Festival, resulting in a performance so precious to her that she could never move on. She hates it. The time she spent working hard and bonding with her friends tainted by the tragic story of separation within Starlight. The story that everyone is currently working together to recreate and improve upon for the next Saisho Festival. The story that means so much to them as it reminds them of all the time they've spent together and how much they've grown. It's something Nana loathes. Although it's not hard to figure out why Nana hates it, considering how alone she used to be, and how not soon after their first performance of it, she already experienced the sadness that comes with separation, with Naruse and Okusa not returning to Saisho. Nana desperately tries to get Karen to understand why she's enforcing her repeat performance, but once Karen blocks Nana's attack and starts refuting what she said, the music starts to change. Gone is the harsh and oppressive melody, and in its place is a softer, slowly building melody, as Karen starts to sing about the beauty that change and progress brings. Karen tells Nana that stage girls get better day by day, which can't happen if the people stay the same and never leave their comfort zone like Nana has been doing up to this point. A performance can only happen once, but isn't that the beauty of it? Just like how we as people place value on every individual day since we only get one shot at life on Earth, it's the fleeting excitement and effort put into any one given performance or endeavor that gives it meaning. Then we move on to our next undertaking in the uncertain future, propelled forward by the valuable memories of our past experiences. In every performance, experience, endeavor, whether they end in success or failure, they remake us into better and more experienced versions of ourselves, ready to tackle our next goal or project with more knowledge and skills. Nana tries to refute this, but as the song reaches its climax, the 99 disappears from the stage, and Karen declares that she and Hikari will grasp that star, their performance of Starlight. And real quickly, before wrapping things up for this review, I just want to give one last mention of how great a voice actress Moeka Kozumi is. When Nana's begging Karen once she starts walking, you can hear just how sad and desperate Nana is to keep things the way they've been, her voice breaking like she's on the verge of tears. I also really like that Karen apologizes to Nana before declaring that she and Hikari will grasp their star, and the last part of the review begins. She clearly understands how important this review and situation overall is to Nana, and she doesn't want to hurt her, but she also can't afford to lose this competition. As Karen in the song begins to sing about how important her relationship with Hikari is, Nana asks her why she shines so brightly, seemingly unable to comprehend the fact that someone can be so passionate, enthusiastic, and hopeful when faced with the uncertainty of the future. As Nana asks Karen this, stage lights in the background emit a bright yellow light, almost as if Nana is mustering up all of her shine and power for this one final attack. Karen and Nana rush towards each other, and as Karen sings Hoshiboshi no Kizuna to a close, we see Nana's review jacket fall off, signaling the end to the 7th day of the auditions. And just like in the last episode against Hikari, this outcome of Nana's defeat was inevitable, even with her immense skill and talent, not to mention repeated experience fighting in the review auditions thanks to her time loop. How can Nana hope to stand a chance against a stage girl constantly working to improve herself in pursuit of her passion and dreams? You can't truly progress in meaningful ways if you stay stuck in the past or your comfort zone, and this is especially true for our banana-like stage girl. And that's why Nana's repeat performance is finally brought to a conclusion. Later that night after the review, Nana is sulking alone outside of Saisho when Juna comes up to her, handing her back her script of Starlight. Juna takes a seat next to Nana, and they begin talking about her repeat performance. Nana explains that she just wanted to keep everyone safe, but that maybe she was wrong for that, and Juna responds by quoting Shakespeare a couple times. I love how quiet and subdued this scene is. After the intense and beautiful review of bonds, we get this really nice scene of Juna just trying to understand and comfort her friend who seems like she's on the verge of tears. It kinda gives me the same vibe as the scene between Karen and Juna after the review of Desire at the end of episode 2. It just goes to show that sometimes the most emotional moments can come from the most quiet of scenes. And I really love how Revue Starlight is able to create meaningful and emotional moments in its story, both through the dazzling spectacle of the reviews and these more quiet, character-driven scenes. Nana asks for more quotes from Juna, so Juna continues reciting quotes that apply well to Nana's situation and character arc. I also really like this one part of the scene where we see the props and costumes from the 99th performance of Starlight, as Juna continues reciting quotes. It's a little sad, but also weirdly comforting at the same time. The darkness of the room being illuminated by the outside light coming in from the windows gives these shots a kind of, I don't know, bittersweet feeling is the way I describe it. And these shots, along with Nana seemingly perking up as she continues to ask Juna for more quotes, does give off the impression that we're starting to see Nana truly heal and move on. Juna closes off her quoting marathon with her own quote. A quote that harkens back nicely to the closing lyrics of The Star Knows from episode 2. And after Juna says this, Rondo Rondo Rondo, the same track that played when Nana first begins experiencing her repeat performance in episode 7, begins to play. Only this time, it doesn't feel foreboding or depressing like it did in episode 7 when we were watching this poor girl who couldn't handle the idea of moving on in life desperately cling to the past. Now it feels like a comforting backdrop to these two friends becoming even closer. It's really cool how the same music track can be used to convey two different emotional tones, a testament to Revue Starlight's strong writing and use of its music. Nana tells Juna that she may have been getting greedy, how in every different loop, she would alter the lines and stage directions a bit to keep things interesting and have everyone grow closer. We see a brief glimpse to this side of Nana at the end of episode 7, when she said that always having the exact same stage is boring. Even Nana, with her obsession and love for her repeat performance, wasn't content keeping things exactly the same, which is why when Hikari arrived and things started changing, even though it should have been something she feared, a potential change to her status quo, she found happiness and excitement in seeing the new ways everyone was changing and growing. Even if she didn't realize it herself, she wanted to see everyone move forward and thrive. She was just too controlled by her fear of being alone in the uncertain future to realize that. But we can see this throughout the show. All the way up until episode 7, Nana is an upbeat and supportive character. Sure, we get glimpses of her insecurities that lead to her repeat performance, like in episode 5, where she wants the leads of this upcoming performance of Starlight to be the same as last time. But for the most part, Nana is a happy and caring character throughout the show, despite the fact that this show is set in a loop where she has less of an idea of what's going to happen. If she truly hated the idea of seeing her friends and classmates hone their craft more and change for the better, we would have seen her be miserable, fearful, or angry throughout the show. But that's not what we see, because Nana Daiba is a stage girl, and to be a stage girl, one must always be looking toward the future, looking to develop and grow skills in what they love to do. Juna sees that in Nana, and she helps her realize what she can focus on next now that her repeat performance is over, making the next performance of Starlight the best it could possibly be. Juna hugs Nana and says, honestly, what might be one of my favorite lines in the whole show. It's so simple, but it has so much warmth and comfort behind it. If you're a stage girl, you'll be fine. Nana begins to apologize and break down crying with Juna there to comfort her. Nana wonders what she should do with her original script of Starlight, and Juna tells her to keep it, because the time Nana spent keeping her time loop going, and how hard she worked to keep everyone safe and happy within her repeat performance, they're an important part of who she is. Even if it was a misguided endeavor, she can take the experience of that time and the memories she made and use them to push her forward into being an even better version of herself. Just as how Hikari used her experience of losing in the London Revue auditions to defeat Nana in episode 8, Juna tells Nana to take her original script of Starlight and the memories she made trying to protect it to the next stage. Nana smiles and, damn, what a great note to end the episode on. These two, who are already so important to each other, come to an even greater understanding of the other through the scene that serves as a perfect finale for Nana's ongoing character arc. I do really like how it was Juna specifically who helped Nana in this scene and not Karen, so having it be her who helps and comforts Nana just feels right. And Karen did help Juna in episode 2 with her issues, which allowed Juna to grow more confident and secure in herself, which is why she was able to comfort Nana in this scene and make a quote of her own, harkening back to her fight with Karen in the Revue of Desire. So in a roundabout way, Karen did still help Nana. Good job, Karen. In all seriousness, I do like how all these characters help each other in different ways. The camaraderie and friendship between all these people who just love theater and want to see each other succeed is very easy to see in the way they help and support one another. It helps make the reviews feel at least a little less cutthroat. Unless you're fighting against Nana in episodes 8 and 9, that's just going to be intense regardless. For this episode's version of Fly Me to the Star, The vocalists are Juna and Nana, with the visuals focusing on them as well. And as usual, I like it. It's a nice chill way to wrap up this important and emotional episode, and I do think Moeka Kozumi and Hinata Sato's voices work really well together. I like the final shot at the ending especially, with the two of them illuminated by different colored spotlights, Nana's being yellow and Juna's blue. Afterwards, we do get a brief scene with what's probably the worst shot of the show in my opinion. I'm sorry, Giraffe, but this shot and angle is not doing you any favors. Anyways, the Giraffe is looking at the rankings board for the Revue auditions and notes that the final day of auditions is approaching, setting up the stakes of the next episode quite well. And as always, he says he understands, which closes out the episode completely. Now I just wish I could understand why they chose that specific shot to end the episode on. As always, thank you so much to everyone for watching this video. Please let me know in the comments what you thought of my analysis or interpretation of Revue Starlight Episode 9. Is there anything I missed? Anything you disagree with? Or anything that I mentioned in this video that you want to expand upon? I obviously quite enjoy talking about Revue Starlight, so getting to talk about this amazing series and this episode specifically with you all in the comments sounds like a lot of fun to me. There's a lot to dig into with this episode, and I really want to know just how many days in a row you had nightmares of that one terrifying shot of the giraffe after you first watched this episode, because I have to assume it's not just me who's freaked out by it, right? And thank you as always to the great editor of this video, OtakuBox. A link to his channel can be found in the description, and I highly recommend checking out some of the cool content he has to offer on his channel. Thank you to everyone for watching these videos. Please consider subscribing if you want to see more Revue Starlight and visual novel content from me. Thank you to everyone who has already subscribed for your continued support of this channel, and I will see you all in the next video.